Hello, and welcome to episode 9 on the CentriCraft server. There's been a slight issue on my end with this episode that I don't have any audio, so you're going to get a voiceover Zaphod for most of this episode. I'm starting here because I'm starting this episode with a prank, because I discovered who it was who paid for me to be assassinated a couple of episodes ago. Turns out it was Cake Man. So I'm here by Cake Man's portal. And I've got some stuff ready. And I believe at this point that Cake Man's AFK at his sheep farm that he's built. So I'm going to go through and start my prank. So the first thing I want to do, I want to get up really high in the world, and I need to take some blocks with me. So I could just pillar up with gravel or something, but I decided it would be easier to build a flying machine and go up that way. So I've built this little flying machine, and I've put some water down right next to it in case I do fall. And then, yeah, this flying machine should take me all the way up to the build height, because at that point it will stop because it can't push itself any higher. So here we go, get up to build height here, and there you see it's stopped. So from here I just build a platform out, and I want to make it look a bit like the sky. So I went with ice, because the idea is if he's not looking for it, he might manage to miss it if he just glances up. And as you can see from the shulker box there, you might work out more or less what the prank's going to be, given it involves a lot of eggs and a bit of redstone. So yeah, I've started building up an auto dispenser for eggs up here. And like I said, I'm putting some glass in. So I did have a couple of these instances where I was falling off. So I put on the elytra that I have, which was given to me by Helix a little while back when he was throwing out a whole load of goodies at Christmas time at one of our meetings. So it came in rather handy in not dying at this point. But I managed to get myself back up to the platform, so it was all okay. It's quite far up, so it took a little while. You can see I've got most of it built here. So the trick is the comparator reads whether there's stuff in the dispenser, and if it is, it activates a little redstone clock on the end here. And if there's stuff in there, the clock will tick, making everything in the dispenser fire out. So I have another block just opposite the dispenser, which the eggs will fly into and break, and then they have a chance of hatching a chicken. And because chickens have wings, they'll just drift down slowly and won't take any fall damage. So yeah, all I need to do is fill up above this hopper, so the chickens in there can drop eggs into the hopper and into the system, so they'll keep producing eggs until they're removed. So if he doesn't notice where the chickens are coming from, they'll keep producing eggs indefinitely. And yeah, so I wanted to finish it up and make it look a little bit square. So if he does glance up and see it, he might think it's just a glitch or a rendering issue or something. But I think it's likely he might notice it and take it down, even though I've tried to blend it in a little bit with the sky. So you can see there's a few chickens down here from my test run. So they'll probably grow up as well. And he's actually online at this point, still AFK, so he's keeping this area loaded. So hopefully it will activate a few more times before he notices it, and there'll be chickens all over his base. The next thing I'm doing is I'm getting some more cats, because I've only got the one. So I went back to the jungle, and it took a while. I was exploring over the jungle a bit, and then I found this one, and there's a slight glitch there where it looked as if it tamed, but it didn't convert to a cat, and I think it was trying to run away, but the leaves are in the way or something here. But it actually runs away because I move suddenly, because if you're trying to tame an ocelot, you have to stay really still, otherwise they run away. So even moving your mouse too quick, they'll run away from. And yeah, this gave me a ginger cat, which I was very excited by. I think it's my favourite out of the three which you can get. Then I found another ocelot after a bit more jungle hunting. I took the ginger cat back to my base first, and this gave me the third type of cat, the one that I hadn't got the pattern of yet. So I took them back to my base, and here they are. I've got the 3 here, and I accidentally bred the ginger one with the black one when I got back, but I'm intending to breed them at some point anyway, so that was fine. I also having some problems with Diamond Doug, in that he ended up in a boat from underneath the platform there, so I had to sort of trap him back in this dirt. I decided it's probably about time he got his own sort of home. So I was going to put a little bit into the sand back here, but I decided I might do a little box up here on the top of the hill, a sort of pillbox sort of defense building, which I'm going to put him in. So I'm going to build that, and then I'm going to have to bait him into it. So this is the design that I've got so far. I've sort of put it up on this little corner, put iron bars around the outside, and I'm sticking to the sort of stone pallet that I've got for the top of my mine. So then I need to bait Diamond Doug into it. So I've built a little tunnel up to it, and now if I break this bit of dirt, he should start following me up. He seems to have a bit of a problem with the following mechanic. I'm not sure exactly why, but he seems to not be paying that much attention to me. I don't know if there's something else, whether and the cats around are distracting him or something, but I managed to get him to follow me eventually. So I get him to come all the way up and all the way along the pathway, which I've covered, so there's no sunlight going to burn him or anything, and then trying to trap him in, which the pathfinding is not sure about. But I do eventually get him into the box, and I remove the dirt path that led him up, so now he's sort of trapped in here. I can't get this last block in because he seems to be standing slightly on that block, so I can't actually place it there. So I had to go and get a piston and use that to push the block in, which is always a useful thing to remember. If you can't put a block somewhere because there's an entity in the way, you can always push the block in. And then here I need to make sure I break the piston before the redstone, because otherwise it will retract the block back. But then, yeah, it's just a couple of finishing touches around the edge of where I baited him through, and that's the little pillbox complete. So my next project is going to be up on this hill, which I've flattened out, and it's going to be a barn for keeping all my animals in. So I want to put my cats in here, and my parrots I want to put in probably in sort of upstairs area, and I'll probably end up moving my chickens and cows into it as well. So it's going to be a fairly large barn, and I want to put it up here, and I've got a whole load of wood for it. So I want to make the walls out of jungle wood, because it's sort of almost got an orangey tint to it, which is kind of what I was going for. And then I'm going to trim it with spruce logs to give the sort of frame shape to it. So you can see here I've started planning out sort of where the edge is. So the spruce logs are slightly outside where the wood is going to go, and I've laid out a slightly wider one for where the main barn door is going to be. So the next bit I did was build up the front sort of shape. So initially I wanted to do this sort of curve going round, so it's sort of flatter at the top and then goes down steeply at the edges. So the next thing I wanted to do is build a roof, and I wanted to do that out of dark oak. So I came over to the shopping district to try and see if I could find any dark oak for sale, and it looks like Intent only had acacia and normal oak. So I went and checked the other wood shop, Amradorn's dark oak sawmill, which I think exclusively does dark oak. They were also completely out of stock, unfortunately. So I had to go and find a dark oak forest myself. But first I wanted to check my shops, because I was already in the shopping district, so I figured might as well do it then, and got some diamonds from the compressed ice. So obviously someone had bought some of that for something. Didn't make any sales of the blue ice or the snow blocks or layers, but did manage to sell some of the snowballs. So that's a couple of extra diamonds for me, which is nice. And my other store is my Trident store, so I went over to that, and I already knew that at least one person had brought some because I saw in their video. I didn't know someone had bought some Nautilus shells, So someone obviously had a heart of the sea and wanted to make a conduit of their own rather than pay for the whole one here. I hadn't sold any raw tridents, but I had made a few sales of the enchanted tridents. So obviously people were willing to pay that amount for the enchantments on them. So that's nice, and it's quite a few diamonds because tridents weren't particularly cheap. So now I'm significantly richer. It's time to carry on with my adventure for dark oak wood. So I looked up where there's a roofed forest and travelled out to it. It's a reasonable distance. I got out here and I chopped down some wood and got some saplings. So now back at my base, I started on the roof using the dark oak I'd just acquired, but it came out looking a bit weird, as you can see. The sides sort of were too steep and ended up too thick, so I decided to change the design of the roof entirely to this. So I've still got diagonal sides and it looks like it gets less steep at the top, but that's actually because it goes back a little bit at the top. So the sides are sort of still diagonal, but it sort of has a cutout at the front. And this was a design based on an image I found on Google, because I was looking at lots of images of barns which had sort of the curves, the sort of barn, you can imagine the red ones with the white trim, and I was sort of going for that shape. But I decided that if I searched for like English barns, they're much more a single diagonal on each side. And then I found this one which had this sort of nice cutout at the front, and I realised that it would work quite well in Minecraft because of the angles it gives, quite easy to replicate. So that's what I've gone with. While building, I came out the back here, and I suddenly saw all of these turtles, which, well, I had been breeding up the turtles a little bit, and there was a fair few eggs around, but I did not realise that there'd be this many turtles out here, and I think it's been causing a bit of lag for the server. So I had to remove some of them. Alright, so I'm back at the barn, and I've put on these doors, which are made out of trapdoors, and I'm starting to do the inside, which I've decided I want to do out of oak to give it a bit of contrast with the wall, because otherwise it all sort of blends in together. I think oak is enough contrast. I might try spruce as well. But my idea is to have some of these platforms like this, and like the one up there, and have them linked by little staircases between them. And then I can have different animals on different layers. And then down in the bottom, I can have large pens for probably the chickens and the cows. And yeah, I've got the whole of the roof done. So if look at it from the back, it's got the same sort of design, but it's slightly sort of over to one side because it cuts in on this corner over here. So yeah, I have to make it slightly off-center with where this door is, but I wanted to keep this sort of center path all the way through. So I've just got that corner cutting in there, and then I'm gonna layer these up, and I've got this little side bit coming out here. So that connects just like that onto the side. And ooh, it's sunset, so I'm just gonna come back around this side, and you get this really nice view of the sun shining straight through the barn. Okay, so it's just started a thunderstorm here, and hey! Okay, I didn't think that through. I now have a charge creeper chasing me. I don't know. Oh goodness, that wasn't my plan at all. Oh, that missed because of lag. I think I got hit by some of the damage from that lightning. Oh. Oh wow, that was a big explosion. I wonder if there's a zombie head amongst that lot. That would be a cool thing to have got. And it doesn't look like there was one. That's a shame. Would be nice to get one. Wait, is it no longer? Ah, it's no longer a thunderstorm. It's just a storm now. Okay, so I've done a little bit of work on the inside now. So I've sectioned off these bottom bits. with these oak fence. So I've got one big pen here and one big pen here. Then over this side, I think I'm going to separate this into multiple pens, probably across there and across there. I went with the spruce for the actual platforms themselves because the oak, well, I wanted the oak fences in, and then there was too much of the oak, and so I basically decided it was best to do the spruce on the slabs, and then I've got the oak for these staircases. That's another thing. I'm not quite sure which staircase I prefer. I've got this one, which is just slabs, so it goes up nice and slowly. Then I've got this one, which is actually stairs, which looks nicer from this side, but around this side, you sort of have this sort of point where it's only just meeting, and then I try to fix that with these fences, and I'm not quite sure that works. So that's why I was doing these ones, and then I've got these upside down stairs in, because otherwise if you use slabs they end up floating. So, and then also at the top you've got this like one bar of that, so I'm not sure about that. I might replace that with one of these, and then I might remove this one, because this one comes up right next to this one, so you haven't got much space walking sideways. But then on this layer I've got a few little pens, and I've used the jungle wood for the barriers, because in an actual barn you wouldn't just leave it open, you would put barriers across so you can't fall down. And then I've got oak for all the stairs as well, so all the way up to the top. So I've got this sort of little attic bit up here. So I think I might put the parrots up here. So I might decorate it a little bit for the parrots. I'm not sure. I might just sort of keep them here, just out the way. And I've got this bit out here where you can sort of see out. I don't think I want to be keeping any animals in here because it's not really animal proof. Same with this sort of middle section. I think it's going to be mostly decoration. I could keep the sort of cats or dogs or whatever just sitting around. It's always a possibility. But yeah, and then I've got the jungle wood fencing it all off all the way to the ends around here. So yeah, I'm not sure about that one. I quite like this little one in the corner, which is the slabbed one. I've got it sort of almost caged in with the oak fence there. Oh, I also put in the doors on this end, so I put them so they're both open this side. And then on this one, I had a bit of difficulty working out what to do with the door because there's not much space outside and it's an odd number, so I can't do, or you can't do 2.5 on each side, so you can't keep it symmetrical. So I decided this door is going to be one which folds up. So I might put something in up there. I don't know whether I want to put something like that in to make it look like it's clipped on, or I might get some tripwire hooks in and do that instead. Yeah, so it's more like it's hinged there and just pulled up. I've started putting the animals in, so I've got cows over here. I went and got some pigs, because there's some pigs just out that side, and I've moved my chickens in as well, and I've been breeding up the cats a little bit. They're a bit of a pain because every time the kitten grows up, it teleports to you, so I'll be off doing something else. Like I changed the roof slightly, I'll show you that in just a second, and then they'll teleport up to me rather than hang around down here. Eventually I want them sort of all loose everywhere, but I want to keep them sort of safe for a little while until I've bred them up a little bit. And what I was talking about the roof is easiest to see if I come out here. I've made this sort of overhang slightly now, because initially it sort of stopped immediately there, but now I've got it to overhang very slightly, which I think looks slightly better. It's hard to tell because there's not a great place to look at that angle of the roof, but I think yeah, it looks better with a slight overhang. Although I'm not sure about the transition here. I might want to put something in the middle or something. Not 100% sure. Oh, that block seems interesting. I might go fix that. So I've still got a little more interior decorating to do in the barn, and I want to do something with the floor, maybe put some podzol or maybe mycelium and some more path blocks in. and then the upstairs needs decorating as well. But I'm going to be doing that in another episode. So that's actually all for this episode. As always, I'd love to hear your feedback down in the comments. And if you want to check out the other Centrix channels, the links to them will be in the description. I've been Recoded Zaphod, and thanks for watching.